shock of Sue's death took a while to sink in. Indeed, initially I was so concerned about buying a new suit for the funeral and worrying that since I hadn't got a volunteer organized, how was I going to get out of the house and find time to buy it? And then suddenly reality sunk in and I realized my time was my own. I didn't have to have somebody at home if I wasn't there. I didn't have to be home by 5:30 in order to relieve the nurse on duty. As I had feared, the role of caregiver was dominating my life. I would wake up on the hour every hour, anticipating that Sue needed to be suctioned. The rituals of funerals and memorial services are very important to help confront reality. While adjusting to the change in routine, responsibility, and activity, there was a numbness and a confusion, an inability to concentrate, feelings of irritability and impatience, and difficulty with sleeping, tears welling up at awkward times. I needed to be grounded. So the apricot tree we had planted together became very important to me. It had been in the garden less than a year. It had survived the winter, and every branch had a bud. And soon every bud turned into blossom. The spring light transformed it into a radiant beacon of hope. It communicated with my unconscious. I felt whole for brief moments when I chose to acknowledge the symbol it was for me. It fostered my spiritual awakening. I understood the presence of a universal force, that everything was interconnected, everything was necessary in the total scheme of things. My life had meaning. Sue's life and death had meaning. This tree had meaning. I felt it. It lived. Then those moments would go, and I would sink back into anguish. The immature fruit swelled, and those supporting my healing did so without expectations. But society does that. Usually at about the 3-month mark, they will say, "Aren't you over that yet? Come on, time to get on with your life. The person is out of their misery, they're no longer suffering, you've wasted enough time, get on with your life." So few will validate the role that the caregiver has played, and therefore the loss that the caregiver is experiencing from no longer having that role. And so few will acknowledge that the death of a disabled, dependent individual is untimely. I had been caregiver, a friend, a partner, a juggler of many roles, all the roles which over time made up my identity, and they were gone. There was no balance in my life. Originally, I compared myself to an octopus with all tentacles firmly attached to something solid, a role, an identity, balanced. Now most of the tentacles had been cut free and were flailing around unattached, insecure, causing great imbalance, no identity or purpose. So if they said, "Get on with your life," I'd say, what life? Whose life? Who am I? I needed to strive to become reattached, not to people. I needed my solitude. I needed to reattach to me. Returning to visit my birthplace in the Isle of Man, I began to heal. I had to let go of yesterday's resentments and anger, letting go of the pain of the past, which was interfering with the present. The path to serenity is strewn with such baggage which drains away all energy and hope.
I didn't need to hold on to the resentment towards those who had walked out of our lives. Their inability to understand the worth of our journey was their problem, not mine. Indeed, there are many caregivers who, no longer seeing the disabled person bearing any resemblance to the person they once knew, must walk away also. I had to let go of my anger towards healthcare staff who let us down when I needed them most, or those whose insensitive presence had been an encroachment, an invasion of our life view. Grieving is a turbulent time, but one of constantly, scaredly, moving forward. To be stuck in the doldrums is to learn to feel a victim. I learnt not to be afraid of remembering, even if the memories brought tears. Tears at least allowed me to acknowledge the value of the life lived and my loss. When that life lives on in the form of memories, there is need of something tangible. This does not have to root us in the past, but can be used as a lifeline as we step into the future. My work colleagues gave me a Japanese maple in memory of Sue, and some friends from our church gave me a park bench, visible, touchable remembrances, like the quilts that our church hangs once a year. We have an annual vigil of hope and remembrance, and the names of those who were served by our home hospice program are displayed. It is through such symbols that we retain contact at a level beyond intellect.
And so what about those regrets and guilts that I worked so hard to avoid experiencing? Sorry, folks, one has to go through them. They're just a rite of passage through grief. I did attend a bereavement group, which I found a great comfort, sharing with people who had gone through similar experiences to myself.
But when it was the first anniversary of Sue's death, I could not be at home. I needed to relive it from a safe place. In Florida, I continued pursuing my love of videography and walked endless beaches and grieved in an unfamiliar place without unnecessary triggers. My octopus tentacles were still aimlessly searching. It was a fragile time for me. Confidence that I would be able to resurrect my life was weak. However much I tried to push myself, I became lethargic, with increased insomnia and ruminations of regrets and guilt, even though I had proof on tape that I had been everything Sue had wanted me to be. 18 months after Sue's death, I experienced a clinical depression, harder than in the initial days of grief. No denial now, and the truth was hurting. Intellectually, I had it all together. Emotionally and spiritually, I was running on empty. This depression was the outward expression of the internal hopelessness that comes when you can't figure out what really is important to you now and in what direction you should move. There had to be a rebirth of self. My experiences with Sue would have to be integrated into the rest of my life. This self-knowledge was the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle that, once in place, set my life on track. It was third chakra work, the restoration of self-esteem, the need to make decisions and create good energy. A time for risking, a time for honoring myself, a time for spiritual growth, a time for introspection to understand myself, whom I had become, and the purpose of my life. The use of medication for a short time helped clarify my thoughts. The creation of this video, workshops, and lectures are the material results of that energy shift. This process was just beginning 2 years after Sue died. It was only then that I felt strong enough to write the first draft of Aspects of Hope. It was a cathartic experience, with many tears shed as I completed unfinished business. That second winter, I had returned to the site of many of our vacations. I walked the paths we once walked. I gained confidence by being alone in the environment in the past shed with Sue. Alone to watch again the video films we had made together to use in this video. Alone with only my memories, but as a new experience. Hope's energy was with me. The energy that turns the invisible faith into a physical life force. Hope for a purposeful tomorrow had been renewed. Renewed, not restored, not recovered, for Sue and I always thought that they were retrograde steps. No, I was renewed, ready to discover, forever changed. So hope takes on a new purpose in this phase. As always, it is a working word, not a wishful thought. Hope allows for positive fulfillment. Hope is to dare to live secure in the knowledge that life is unfolding as it should. And finally, I could talk about Sue without bursting into tears. I knew I was moving on. But it had taken me 2 years, and I was only in my 50s and had something to move on towards. It is a complex grief when death comes after a long illness. Many caregivers are older than I was when their role ends and have lost connectedness with their own independent selves. Many, while caregiving, withdraw as they no longer have the time or energy to be social. When the caregiving role is over, so is the relationship with many supportive healthcare professionals. Isolation is not our friend. Restoring wholeness is not an easy task. Many have asked me why Sue fought so hard to live. Some have indicated that it was because she was born under the zodiac sign of Scorpio. Who knows? All I know is that she knew she was unconditionally loved. She knew that she was valued just the way she was, and she knew her life had purpose and meaning. Her body may have crumbled around her, but she did not leave this life before she had completed her mission. Sue showed the world that no matter the suffering and disability, life is a gift to be lived to the best of one's ability. And what did I learn? Sue taught me the value of trust and belief in myself. She taught me how to accept the role in life I had been asked to play. She taught me how to face the unknown and accept that I would never have all the answers, and that I have to travel forward in faith because life is mystery. Now, neither of us started out feeling this way. Indeed, we were both very angry until we were able to place value in the life we were destined to lead. Then its purpose became clear. And now my octopus has her tentacles firmly reattached to meaningful things. I continue to search for the gift hidden in every problem, because every experience has given me the tools to face the next stage of the journey. The symbols remain important because they are the reminders of the stepping stones to the new beginning. They are hope's triggers. To visit the cemetery is not a painful experience. The stone is a validation that the life was, that the spirit is.
And so our story is told. This fourth video I know is complete with Sue's blessing. Tree, well, life does go on. And I think we have both grown